I was only 20 years old.
Calling all cars and country stations, information, parachute troops landed somewhere on Oahu, wearing blue clothing, red shields. Orders from the Army, shoot on sight.
The fear increased during the evening. A blackout was imposed. People huddled in their houses. They listened to the police band on the radio, which described rumors of paratroops landing, of poisoned water. There were wild, crazy stories of Japanese agents being signaling from hills, of dogs barking in code.
First, nobody believed that the Japanese were attacking. And then once they did, they believed anything that anybody told them, including that they were coming inland to capture us all.
We knew they'd invade us that night. And there was that terrible feeling of anxiety, unbelievable anxiety. And everybody was trigger happy. I came up to the gate because I wanted to go see Admiral Block, and my God, I heard a couple of shots. I went back to my cantonment. I said, I'm not going in there. They're shooting everybody.
The night of December 7th, there were people guarding the beaches. The tide went down and the reef started sticking up, and people would think they were landing craft coming ashore, so they'd shoot at the reef, and then people down the beach would think, well, the Japanese have landed, so they'd start shooting up the other way.
No lights allowed, pitch black, and you'd stumble over something or someone, and somebody was very nervous, and they'd fire.
We shot not on command, but we shot because somebody else shot.
We did kill one of our own pilots as he flew over, Lieutenant John Daines.
Dear B, if and when you ever receive this letter, I will have been shipped home in a basket. I think it only fitting for you to know that my only regret is not to have snatched you up and married you when I had the chance. I can truthfully say I liked you more than any one person I've ever known. I am wishing you all the joy and happiness possible. I remain yours forever. With all my love, John.
I was still back aboard ship, the Enterprise. One of the sailors put up a little board, and in the board it said, Japs attack Pearl Harbor. That's the first time any of us knew anything about it.
On the unluckiest day of American military history, there was one bit of seeming good luck. All the U.S. aircraft carriers were at sea, their pilots ready to fight back.
I ran out and jumped into my airplane. The flight deck launching officer dropped his yellow flag, and I was launched. And I remember getting off the bow of the ship, rolling up my wheels, charging my guns, wondering what a little boy from Lee Summit, Missouri is doing in a place like this. There were 6 of us. As we approached Ford Island, we'd been in the air for about 4 hours, and we were all just about out of gas, and we didn't know how much longer we could stay in the air. We turned into Pearl Harbor Channel. The floodlights were on. They were all set for us to land.
I guess it was about 6:30, 7 o'clock, we heard some more airplanes come in. And of course, previously, they told us we were to expect another attack. And we saw these planes come in.
We turned on our lights, and that must have been the trigger that set everybody off. We turned on our lights, and then everybody started to shoot.
My gosh, everybody started to open up on them. And we shot, I think it was 6 of them down, and we killed around, I believe it was 4 of the pilots, but we didn't realize until the next morning that they were from the USS Enterprise.
Every gun, everybody that had a .45, a small arms, a rock, a piece of pipe, everything opened up on us. They thought, obviously, we were the enemy. And the It was just awful. Fritz, who was leading the flight, Fritz Hebel, he broke through it, got through the fire here, and evidently up at Wheeler Field, up in the middle of the island, they thought that they didn't know what was going on, so they thought we were enemy. They shot poor Fritz down up there. He crashed and was killed, put his head through the gun sight right in front of him. And my wingman was Eric Allen. Eric Allen was a Naval Academy graduate, the only one we had in the squadron. He had a wonderful tenor voice. Eric was just a hell of a nice guy. And Eric bailed out right over the tower, right over Battleship Row that was burning, the Arizona, the Nevada. And Eric bailed out. His parachute opened about 1,000 feet, and they killed him as he floated down in his parachute. They put a 50-caliber shell right through his chest, and he landed in on all the muck and oil and the burning stuff in Pearl Harbor.
I thought of home in Massachusetts. My mother and father and sister. They'd be sitting in the little house in the farm country, wondering about me. There'd be cold there, the first thin ice in the brook, and the trees stark and bare. I thought of the other men at Pearl, huddled under cranes or piles of lumber and steel. Those who had died without knowing, and those who were trapped and would die by morning.
We knew there was nobody left in the Oklahoma. We got all those guys out, but we could still hear the tapping coming from the West Virginia. And at night was the hardest because it would be real quiet, and the moon would be out, and it was a beautiful night, but everything was completely blacked out because there was no light showing or anything. You couldn't show a light. In fact, everything kind of ceased at sunset, and at night would be so darn quiet, and it seemed like that tapping was even more aggravated because of the stillness. And we'd walk by the ship, and we could hear that tapping, and we used to just kind of put our hands over our ears so that we could pass the ship and we wouldn't hear it. And then finally, it was just before Christmas, I think, 22nd, 23rd, the tapping quit. And that was the last of the guys that were on my ship that were killed.
The final toll was 2,403 Americans killed, 1,178 wounded. 8 battleships and 10 other vessels sunk, capsized, or badly damaged. 164 aircraft destroyed by the Japanese.
They want you. You at the meeting, you at the client dinner. You in 2 places at once, so you can't be held back by some preset limit on a bank card. Not you. What you need is something that's behind you, all the way. The card, the American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
Christmas, marked by Santas, holly, and the welcome presence of Alka-Seltzer. Fast relief of heartburn with headache, accompanied by jingling bellies. Alka-Seltzer, the other holiday tradition.
Freedom, freedom.
Lady Stetson. Independence. A declaration of independence. Wear it.
Fisher-Price knows that into each toy's life, a little rain must fall. In fact, sometimes rain isn't the only thing that falls. Which is why Fisher-Price toys are built for all the twists and turns and bumps and thumps of that long endurance race called childhood.
Something's missing. Today's pork. What's missing? 31% of the fat, 14% of the calories. Taste what you could be missing. Pork, the other white meat.
Remember your very first job?
We're actually doing it. We've got jobs.
And how rich you were gonna be?
25 cents an hour. You screw up and I'm calling your parents.
The critics say Brooklyn Bridge is a show to love.
You don't smoke anything. You don't even chew gum. Come on, the hokey pokey.
An all-new Brooklyn Bridge after 60 Minutes Sunday.
Based on a true story. Her sister was kidnapped.
Please don't kill my sister.
Then she became the sheriff's bait.
Kidnapper has a fascination with you. If he saw you again, it might trigger a call.
Please, let her go.
The voice on the phone had no pity. The sheriff had no clues. The next victim had no place to hide.
I'll be waiting for you.
Can William Devane stop a nightmare in Columbia County? Tuesday. Wednesday, beautiful models are dying young, and Jake's pretty new partner,
Cute couple.
could be next.
What are you standing there for?
Die real pretty.
Jake and the Fat Man.
I suppose everybody who was alive 50 years ago today remembers where he was and who he was with when he heard the news. Where were you?
I was in a tree in Johnny Chiver's front yard. He was a buddy of mine, and we lived in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And I remember it particularly because Mrs. Chivers came out of the house to tell us the terrible news just about the same time my sister came over to tell me that my mother wanted me to come home. You know, it had special significance to us because, of course, my dad was in the military.
We had a ritual Sunday afternoon drive, as so many families did in those days, and we always stopped at a little country store where my dad would go in and buy a big nickel bag of peanuts, enough to feed everybody in the car. And this morning he didn't come back for a long time, and when he came back it was without the peanuts. He had a very solemn expression on his face, I remember. He had been in there, hearing the news on the radio.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air.
I was in New York, and I had gone to see a double-header movie. And I came out, and there were people in the street agitated about something. It was a rough part of New York, and I thought there might have been a holdup or somebody had been muscled around. And I asked, and an older man said, I was about 30 at the time. He said, well, this is a big day for you, son. Japan just declared war on the United States. I was bowled over. I thought it was a paper declaration, you know, that we're old style. He said, oh no, they just bombed Pearl Harbor. They wiped out Pearl Harbor. I went home pretty sick.
Pearl Harbor was an enormous shock to the whole national nervous system. You know, never been anything like it. We had the whole country listening, of course. Everybody was glued to their radios, everywhere and all over the world. I remember driving down the parkway to the back of the Japanese embassy, and I could see white smoke coming up from their backyard. They were already burning their papers. And of course, every radio and every car out of every house was coming these stories about the attack at Pearl Harbor. You couldn't attack a major American base, especially under conditions of such treachery. They had their diplomats were still here, two of them, the special envoys, negotiating with Cordell Hull, Secretary of State.
The two Japanese diplomats, Nomura and Kurusu, had arrived at the State Department December 7th to deliver a message breaking off relations. They did not know Pearl Harbor had been attacked.